Hello everyone, I am Dr. Eric Morrison. This is 7 Under 3, and I'll be covering trading education, more specifically FOREX trading, using the TC2000 and TradingView platforms. Hello, this is the FOREX Week in Review for the week ending with the 28th July 2023, and I'm going to start off with the Aussie dollar, Canadian dollar. What you see here on the flags are the actual COT reports with respect to that currency pair for long. And what we saw was a complete breakdown of the currency pair for Aussie dollar, Canadian dollar. It continued its weekly price action to the downside. Now, not only is it below the dragon on the weekly, it is also below the dragon on the daily. We have current price targets here at Z3 excursion or the Z3. Z3 is a little higher at 0.86626. It is starting to get crowded out on the short side for this week, as it was last week. However, price action is still collapsing to the downside. Overall loss on the long trades for this particular currency pair was $715. Aussie dollar, Swiss franc, same thing. We have current COT data crowded pretty much on the short side, so we should be looking at long trades here. However, everything on the weekly was to the downside. This was in alignment with the FTM to the downside and showed on the overall table as far as more price action to the downside, actually hitting the Z3, now closing below it. So there could be additional price action to the downside all the way down to the Z3 here too as well. Overall loss for the week was $489. Aussie dollar, Japanese yen was, I wouldn't say crowded out so much on the long side, but short trades are stronger here. We did have an FTM to the long side right at the Z3 excursion. What did it do? It bounced right off of that and continued its price action to the downside in alignment with its COT. And we got a nice overall profit of $1,180 to the short side. Actually, after the Japanese Bank of Japan, Japanese yen, went ahead and announced that it was going to address inflation, it already hit down below the Z3 all the way down to the 200 after that initial collapse, and then bounced back up to the upside once it was restricted to just 1% as opposed to let the markets decide inflation interest rates. Aussie dollar, New Zealand dollar also for the previous week was crowded out to the short side. Overall price action kind of consolidated up here above the dragon, even with its weekly FTM and price action above the dragon. It just collapsed in terms of overall strength, and with an overall loss of $720. Our Aussie dollar, US dollar also was crowded out to the short side. Not for this week. It's kind of mixed here between retail and institutional traders. Most price action was to the downside on the previous week and followed through all the way below the dragon, both on the weekly and on the daily. Overall loss of $843 on this week's trades. Canadian dollar, Swiss franc, pretty much below the dragon and crowded out on the long side, so pretty much just short. However, it is bouncing a little bit above the Z3 excursion here. We see a wide Z3 excursion with a lot of liquidity here in this zone, so it did a little bit of bounce. Still negative and crowded out to the long side with the consolidation on the daily here. Overall loss at $248. Canadian dollar, Japanese yen had FTM to the upside, crowded on the long side. However, as soon as it opened, it continued its price action to the downside. And we have a Z3 excursion here and closed right at above the dragon here. Still strong here, but overall weakness overall on the weekly. Overall gain on the shorts were $517. Swiss franc, Japanese yen, same thing. Overall price action to the upside above the dragon. However, extremely crowded out in terms of the long side, above 70% on the COT report. As soon as we entered into the short, based on the crowded out, nice overall profit of $1,182 to the short side. Again, with that Japanese yen announcement, continued its price action to the downside, then snapped back as soon as those restrictions were announced. Swiss franc, South African rand. Everything below the dragon with FTM and everything in agreement crowded out to the short side. and it just followed suit. As soon as it opened, it just started collapsing, and it did have a little bounce here with an actual overall liquidity zone here at this mark, and we do have this enormous Z3 excursion in liquidity zone here at 20.04181 for Swiss franc South African rand. Overall gain $3,015 on one standard lot. Euro Aussie dollar, even though price action was to the upside, with the significant crowding out in terms of that overall effect and influence, price action FTM was to the upside. Overall loss was $274.96 for Euro Aussie dollar for the week. However, we did have price action to the downside on the weekly with significant crowding out here for Euro Canadian dollar. However, nice overall profit of $887 as it goes below the dragon and continuous price action to the downside. Euro Swiss franc was a beautiful weekly trade to the downside. We had initial price action below the dragon. It was a green follow the money. However, when you look at its overall crowding out, people are doubling down on the long side right now, especially with this overall candle. It's interesting that they see continued price action to the downside, still below the dragon, continued price action to the downside. Overall gain $549. However, with the stop price action up there, you could move your price at stop to the high of the previous candle as it prints and save yourself this overall loss in profit. So applying the risk management strategies to your overall trading in terms of targets and stops will significantly risk less in terms of your overall trades. And stop placement you can place at your risk tolerance level. Euro British Pound had significant FTM to the upside, and we also had FTM, but crowd out on the long side. However, we did have the 200 here. We had the Euro 270 here, and it just bounced between them. Overall, COT was to the long side in terms of crowding out, and overall gain for Euro British Pound was $1,065 to the shorts. Euro Japanese yen, we did have an FTM to the long side, significant crowding out on the long side. As soon as it opened, everything went to the short side, except for the previous day. Again, the Japanese yen pairs comes down, touches the RL270 and the Z3 here. Just to note, going short at a Z3 excursion or Z3 with 270 might want to rethink that as far as going past 3 standard deviations from the mean. So this is a nice overall trade to the downside. I did include the last day as a give back. However, I would not necessarily take this short trade with the probabilities against me like that. Euro New Zealand dollar is crowded out on the long side as well. We had a green FTM at the top of the consolidation zone for the weekly. It's been going on for many weeks now. So this was a good short trade at the top. And as you can see here, overall gains $892 to the short side on one standard lot. Euro US dollar, same thing. We had the Z3 excursion here. Crowded all to the long side. Now is crowded out at 70% on retail. This is extremely crowded out to the long side. And initially started its overall fall, to the short side with an overall profit of $1,084 on one standard lot. Euro South African Rand too as well, below the dragon. Red FTM, red candle, crowded out significantly on the short side, including the retail. This is going to be an interesting trade for next week. Overall gains, $3,428 on one standard lot. So overall gains from its initial fall here to the Z3 excursion, to the Z3, and then bounce back down to the overall 200 here. British Pound, Aussie dollar, crowded out to the short side. We had initial down candle here as well. Overall loss of $15.79, especially with this last candle to the upside. And as you can see on the table, as the strength of those overall currencies go negative, this starts to go positive. British Pound, Canadian dollar, overall crowding out on the long side, below 70% for this week. However, last week we had a big red FTM candle to the downside. Overall loss of $211, and we have further price action to the downside, still above the dragon on the weekly though. British pound Swiss franc below the dragon, red FTM, crowded out on the long side. Overall loss of $623.28. British pound Japanese yen crowded out on the long side, significantly hovering among this consolidation zone here on the daily, and then just to the short side on this. Initial price action hit the Z3. Taking this short would not have been a good idea on the last day because it's beyond the Z3 at this point. But I included it in there. Overall loss with this trade in the last day would have been still a profit of $678. So overall, would added another $2,000 to this overall trade without trading an overall Z3 trade or Z3 excursion or Z3 with a combination of a long moving average like 200 or RL270 as a liquidity zone. The more convergence of longer term time frame moving averages and the Z3 and Z3 excursion have the higher probabilities of very strong liquidity zones and reversals at that specific point. British pound, New Zealand dollar, all to the upside, crowded out on the long, and this overall was a loss with this consolidation of $224, and just bouncing up and down between this support level here on the point figure and the Z3 up here. British pound US dollar, a gain of $39. However, we did have a negative candle here, just kind of closed out just below 200 and dragging here for an interesting pinch. We could have a tweezer to the upside going forward here. It is crowded out for next week on the long side, so we'll see if this continues to go down to the RL270. Everything below the dragon right now, but we got RL270 on the daily here that might push it up. British pound, South African rand, beautiful below the dragon, red candle, red FTM, crowded out significantly at 70% below the dragon on the daily, and an overall profit of $2,674 on short trades for the South African rand. British pound, South African rand. New Zealand Canadian dollar was crowded out on the long side. It is crowded out, not at 70% or significant, but we did have a Joji overall. Overall trade was $5.38 loss, right? So it did pretty much break even, bouncing up on the RL90. Below the dragon at this point, also below the dragon at this point, but interesting that it is crowded out long here going forward. It is still crowded out long for next week. New Zealand Swiss franc, it was mixed on the commitment of traders, did not touch that one. Everything below the dragon and below the Z3 excursion here, pretty much to the downside. New Zealand Japanese yen, crowded out on the long side for a beautiful short. We had a red candle, red FTM, and it didn't disappoint. Overall profit of $409 on one standard lot. Again, would not trade the Z3 excursion here at this particular point for this overall loss. Additional $489 here as well. But with the Japanese yen announcement or a black swan event, you could have the potential for going up here. But those events are very rare. Best probably to take the profit at the Z3 or Z3 excursion. New Zealand US dollar, didn't touch it. Was not significantly crowded out to one side. Same with the US dollar Canadian dollar. Same with the US dollar Swiss franc. US dollar Japanese yen, pretty much crowded out significantly to the long side for a short trade. Overall shorts from the beginning started this fade overall right below the dragon, and then just bounced right back up as soon as that announcement was with the Bank of Japan. Overall gain $491. Overall gains for just the regular majors and minors of the 28, looking at overall weekly gain of $4,717 on one standard lot. With just the significant crowding out percentages above 70%, looking at $7,882. So it's best to focus on the ones that are significantly crowded out, with that overall percentage being above 70%. Looking at some of the exotics here, we still had the Mexican peso significantly crowded out to the short side, so we're looking for longs. However, it's still falling. All right, so never catch a falling dagger. Continued to the downside in price action. Overall losses for long trades were $1,778. US dollar, South African rand, below the dragon, weekly red, weekly red. It was crowded out to the long side, now is mixed, so we're not going to be trading this next week. However, for this week, beautiful gain of $2,017 to the short side. Nice overall trades to the downside for US dollar, South African rand. South African rand, Japanese yen, all to the upside, pretty much above the dragon. Green FTM, and look, it comes up, hits the Z3 excursion as far as the target goes. All crowded out significantly to the long side. However, we did have a good Z3 trade here, and then the Bank of Japan reversed, and it reversed back. So overall loss, $88.56 on South African rand, Japanese yen. Grand total for the exotics, the South African rand, Mexican peso, was $9,268 to the long side and short side. So overall gains for the weeks on all of the trades was $13,986 on one standard lot, going off the CFTC data and the crowding out. If I just take the majority of the crowding out at 70% or above, looking at $11,461.38. So a little less. Overall, the markets are crowded out to the long side overall for all of the currencies. Major percentage of all the currencies are crowded out on the long side. So folks, that's all I have for the Forex Week in Review. If you're interested in this strategy and these scripts and programming in both PineScript and Python and auto trading, your particular strategies, click on the links below. And remember, ruthless risk management. Have a great weekend, everybody, and I'll see you on Sunday.
Well, if you like this video, go ahead and hit the like rumble button below and the subscribe button. And if you want more information, go ahead and click the course information links below. On the TradingView link and on TC2000, I have an affiliate link. If you open up a TC2000 account, you will receive a $25 discount using that link. Thank you for your time.